All right, so let's just jump right into this deep dive. Um, we're talking about how to make 2025 your most prosperous year yet. And we're going to do that using this recent article called Your Financial To-Do List for 2025. Top priorities for a prosperous year. So we'll break it down and get to all the important takeaways for year.
Yeah, we're going to focus on stuff you can actually use, like practical steps and stuff. It's not just like feel good stuff.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Okay, so first up, this article dives into budgeting, which is like, okay, we've all heard that before, but it actually takes a slightly different approach this time. It's about connecting your spending with your values, which I thought was a really interesting concept.
Yeah, it's like subtle, but it makes a big difference. Just imagine like starting with your biggest goals in life first,
Mm.
right? So like that dream trip you want to take or early retire, whatever it is. And then you like build your budget around those things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So it's not about cutting back on everything and being miserable. It's
Mm.
more about like being intentional with your money
Yeah.
and making sure it's aligned with what actually matters to you. And on that note of aligning things, the article also talks about this idea of small changes, big impact. And they give this example of cutting back on daily lattes.
Yeah, and I know it sounds like way too simple, right? But when
Uh,
you actually think about it, like even just a $5 latte, if you buy it every weekday, that ends up being like over $1,000 a year.
oh, wow. Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? And that's just one small change. Think of all the stuff you could do with an extra $1,000.
Yeah, that puts things into perspective for sure. Okay, now on a slightly less exciting note, the article also talks about the whole credit card debt situation,
Yeah,
which is kind of a bummer, but it's like, I feel like everyone's dealing with that right now.
it's true. It's a huge problem right now. And it's not just about people overspending or anything like that. There's a lot of like economic factors at play too, you know?
Yeah.
Like inflation's eating away at our purchasing power and interest rates are going up, which makes debt more expensive. It's a tough situation all around.
For sure. And the article suggests a few things that can help, like canceling unused subscriptions, which I'm definitely guilty of.
Oh yeah, me too.
How many streaming services are we all paying for and not even using?
It's so easy to just forget about them,
It
right?
really is.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the grocery bill. Those little impulse buys can really add up.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The article talks about really analyzing your spending habits, and I think that's such a good idea. Like just to see where your money's actually going.
Definitely. Okay, so now let's switch gears and talk about investing. The article mentions this thing called a personal investment policy, which sounds kind of intimidating at first.
Yeah, it does sound kind of complicated, but really it's just like your own personal game plan for investing.
Hmm.
So it's basically a set of rules that you create to help you make better decisions, especially when the market gets crazy.
So it's like instead of panicking when the market dips, you've already got a plan in place.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. And the article mentioned something I thought was really interesting. It said that like the worst days in the market are often followed by the best days.
Yeah, isn't that wild? But it's true. Like statistically, it's almost impossible to time the market perfectly. So having a plan like this helps you ride out the ups and downs.
Yeah, instead of constantly checking your portfolio and freaking out.
Exactly. You can just like chill and focus on other things.
And that actually brings us to something I really liked about this article. It's not just about money, it's also about well-being, which I think is so important.
Yeah, for sure. And it talks about things like advocating for yourself at work.
Right. But the article emphasizes having those conversations about your value and what you bring to the table.
Yeah, your salary isn't just a number. It's a reflection of how much your skills and experience are worth,
Yeah.
you know? So this article really makes you think like, do I feel valued in my current job? It's a good question to ask yourself.
It really is. And, if you're able to negotiate a higher salary, well, then you have even more money to put towards those values and goals that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
It all comes full circle.
Yeah, it's all connected.
Okay, so now let's talk about something that most people don't really like to think about, estate planning.
Yeah.
It's not the most fun topic, but the article actually makes it sound a lot less scary. It's really about having peace of mind, knowing that you've got all your important documents in order, like your will your trust, even instructions for your digital stuff.
Yeah, it's about taking control and making sure your wishes are followed.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be super complicated. There are online tools now that can help, even if your finances are pretty simple.
Well, that's good to know. But the article also stresses the importance of actually talking to your family about all this stuff.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. You can't just like make a will and then hide it in a drawer somewhere. You need to have open and honest conversations with your loved ones.
It's about building trust,
Yeah.
making sure everyone's on the same page. And for all the married couples out there, the article has some lighthearted advice. Regular date nights,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
which is cute, but it also makes sense. Investing in your relationship is just as important as investing in your portfolio.
Exactly.
All right. Moving on to something a little more unconventional. The article suggests gifting money to loved ones now instead of waiting until later.
Yeah, and I know that sounds a little strange, but there can be tax advantages. And it allows you to see the impact of your generosity while you're still around.
That's true. It's like giving the gift of opportunity,
Oh.
helping them achieve their dreams or whatever it is sooner rather than later.
Exactly. And the article points out that the annual gift tax exclusion is actually going up in 2025.
Oh, wow.
So you can give even more without getting penalized.
Oh, that's good to know. Speaking of deadlines, the article also talks about planning ahead for things like tax season. Nobody likes scrambling at the last minute.
It's so stressful.
And the article suggests reframing how we think about deadlines in general.
Oh, interesting.
Like instead of seeing them as these horrible constraints, we can see them as opportunities to create more time for the things that actually matter to us.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. If you get all that financial stuff out of the way early, then you have more time and energy to focus on your passions and your relationships and all that good stuff.
Exactly. It's like proactive planning gives you the gift of time,
I like that.
which is the most valuable thing we have.
I
This article is seriously full of great ideas.
It really is. And it's not just about like making a ton of money either. It's about living a life that feels good, you know? Like a fulfilling life.
Right. It's about aligning your financial decisions with your values and your goals and your vision for the future.
Exactly. And remembering that money is just a tool to help you get there.
So as we wrap up this first part of our deep dive into this pepper insightful article, it's clear that a prosperous 2025 is about way more than just dollars and cents.
It's about making smart choices that are in line with your values, investing in yourself and your relationships, and creating a life that feels both abundant and meaningful, you know?
It's about taking control of your money so that it works for you, not against you. And ultimately, it's about having the freedom to pursue the things that really matter to you.
I love that. So what resonated with you the most from our discussion today? What's one thing you're going to do to start working towards a more prosperous and fulfilling 2025?
That's a great question. We'll be back after a short break to dive even deeper into some of these concepts, so stay tuned.
You know, one thing that really stood out to me in this article was how much it emphasizes being proactive. Like, it's not just about reacting to financial problems when they pop up, but actually getting ahead of them.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think a lot of us, myself included, tend to be more reactive, especially when it comes to money stuff.
Mhm.
But this article is saying that if we're more proactive, we can actually like reduce stress and make smarter decisions, which makes sense.
Totally. And it goes back to that whole personal investment policy thing we were talking about.
Wow.
You know, having a clear plan in place can help you stay calm when the market goes crazy instead of just like reacting emotionally.
So it's kind of like having a financial safety net, knowing that you've already thought about different situations and you have a strategy ready to go.
Exactly. And the article even talks about some specific strategies for dealing with those market up and downs, like dollar cost averaging.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
Right.
But I'm not going to lie, I never really understood how it worked.
Oh, it's actually pretty simple.
Yeah.
Basically, you invest a set amount of money at regular intervals, no matter what the market's doing.
Okay.
So when the market's down, you're buying more shares at a lower price. And when the market's up, you're buying fewer shares at a higher price. So it kind of balances things out.
Oh, that makes sense. So you're not trying to like time the market perfectly or anything?
Exactly. It takes the guesswork out of it,
Okay.
which is nice. And it really fits with the whole message of the article, like taking a long-term approach to your finances. It's not about getting rich quick. It's about building a solid foundation for the future.
Right. Building something that's going to last.